Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and you saw this week that there's a lot going on in the world, particularly as it relates to police brutality, the situation in Baltimore, and the after effects of what happened with the death of Freddie Gray in the custody of police. And so I kind of thought it would be cool and interesting to get a white woman's perspective, and so I call her my favorite white woman. I'm messing with Miss Susan Patton, aka the Princeton Mom. How you doing today, Susan?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you, boys. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Do you know? You should know this. Do you know that of all the interviews I do on my YouTube channel, our interviews get like the most thumbs down? Did you know that?
Am I the only white person you talk to, boys? Is that well? I'm the only white person you talk to. You don't talk to other white people,
That's
and I
true.
think and that's why I think that there is a huge population of your viewers who just reflexively they're going to thumbs down me just because I'm white. And you know what? Shame on those people. Shame on those people. They're judging me by the color of my skin. I'm not judging them by the color of their skin. So when we want to get down to who's being racist here, not me, babe. No, no,
Well,
not me.
I would say that they're not judging you by the fact that you're white. I think that it comes down to the fact that you're white and you say what's on your mind. You share some ideas and sentiments that might be on the minds of other white people, but they may not say it. Or, because if you were like, I don't know if you know Tim Wise, who's a pretty well known liberal. He tends to say a lot of things that make black people cheer. If you were saying what Tim Wise said, then you'd be hailed as a hero, even above black people. Like Tim Wise gets respected above and beyond a lot of black people because I think a lot of black people are very happy when they see a white person that validates their viewpoint. So
Right?
it's going to happen when you disagree. But what's important too is that I don't mind the thumbs down. I like the idea of sharing different ideas,
Absolutely.
learning different perspectives, even if I think that they're even if I think that they're wrong um, or if they don't suit my interest. My interest is the black community, and so there are people that have
Well,
views
obviously.
that aren't
And
consistent with that.
obviously, the thumbs down is not for you. I mean, sometimes it's for you when the audience, some members of the audience feel that you are not harsh enough with me, that they want you to really come at me in a much nastier way, which you wouldn't because that's not who you are, and I wouldn't tolerate it because that's who I am. But yeah, the thumbs down is not for you, it's for me. And honestly, that's a little bit disappointing. I think anybody who has really listened to our conversations, really listened to them, and not approach them from the perspective, oh, white woman, white woman, the enemy. I'm not the enemy. I am not the enemy. And how I wish that our audience, especially, and clearly our audience is predominantly black, I wish that they would approach our conversations. See, Lucille agrees with me.
Now I'm
I
saying, why,
wish,
why did the dog growl when he heard black? See, is
uh,
that a racist dog? Is your
racist
dog a
dog.
bigot? Go ahead. Go ahead. Keep going.
But I wish, Lucille, I wish that our audience would be more receptive to just just listen to what we're saying. We're having civil discourse. We've never You and I have never spoken to each other in a disrespectful way, even though we disagree about just about everything. But it's a good thing. Let us exchange ideas. Tell me what you're seeing that I'm not seeing, because that's how I'll learn from it. And let me tell you what I'm seeing that you're not seeing clearly, if we're not in agreement, because maybe you'll learn from it.
I think that's certainly ideal. And what I will say is I think that maybe some people might give a thumbs down or not want to hear a white perspective because we hear from white people all the time, every day, everywhere we go. Our whole lives we were taught by white people. We go to work, you're listening to a white boss a lot of times. You're watching TV, you're hearing from white media, predominantly white media. And I think that there's a point where black people just maybe some of us get tired of it. I know I do. I know sometimes I'm like, you know what? I don't want to talk to white people today. And it's funny. You're the only white person as far as any sort of media space where I'm willing to even address the situation in Baltimore because it's so heavy for me, so personal
Oh,
that
yeah.
when CNN called yesterday, I literally held my breath and had to decide if I even wanted to do the interview because I was like, I don't know if I feel like talking to white people about this.
Yeah.
because it's such a frustrating conversation.
Oh,
Fortunately, something happened and the segment didn't occur, so I didn't have to confront that. But there is kind of this little explosion inside of you,
get it.
as a black man, where you're just thinking, you know what, I just leave me alone, you know.
Yeah.
But I talk to you because you're my friend, and that's why I respect you, and I want people to know that I respect you because I respect you. And if your views are different, then okay, say it.
So
I want to hear what you have to say.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel the same. You know I do. We don't agree on lots and lots of stuff. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. I know that you come by your opinions honestly and thoughtfully. So I'm always willing to listen to your very wrong opinions about so many things that we just can't seem to. But okay, okay. So
Well,
what are your thoughts about Baltimore? What are your thoughts? I know that. Let me give you my thoughts first because you're going to have a lot more to say than I do. It's heartbreaking. What's going on in Baltimore is heartbreaking on so many levels. Baltimore is a great American city, and to see its own people destroy it it's heartbreaking. It feels very much like Baltimore is a city that never evolved. It didn't get better. I sort of remember the late 60s, the early 70s. I mean, I was a child at the time, but I do sort of remember the unrest that we lived with back in the late 60s and early 70s. And it feels like Baltimore has not evolved from that. And that's tragic. As I watch these videos and I watch the reporting of what's going on in Baltimore, yeah, there is something going on there. There's a desperation, there's an anger, there's a frustration that as a white person, I don't get it. I don't get it. What I would think is, why are you destroying your own city? And how awful it is for the black community, for all black communities, that these are the images that are being broadcast on media 24/7 of these black people destroying, looting, rioting. This is not protest. We've gone beyond protest. It's not protest, they are rioting. How awful it is that this is what the world is seeing black people do. And I understand it's not all black people that are rioting. And I saw there's some images that the media has put forward that shows black people in Baltimore acting responsibly, trying to calm the violence, trying to do the right thing. But for the most part, the media coverage, I think, has been terrible for black people. It's made black people look bad. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for that. But it sure, there's obviously so much anger and so much frustration and so much desperation. I mean, you don't do this to your own city unless you feel like you've got nothing left to lose. So it's awful, and I get that. I have become, in large part through our conversations, very sensitized to really how bad and how desperate the black community feels, especially in cities like Baltimore, trying to deal with white authorities. Although the mayor's black, the chief of police is black, the president of the United States is black, it's not as though there are no black people in power. I'm a little confused, and I surely don't think that anything that the black community is doing in Baltimore by way of rioting is going to be helpful to them. So I wish that I wish they didn't do it. I wish this is not what was broadcast. I wish this isn't what happened. But I guess when you are feeling that desperate and that angry and like you have nothing left to lose, then yeah, this is probably what you do.
okay. Well, let me give you a perspective. Integration. What did that do? Well, it opened the doors for black people to have opportunities that we didn't have before. We could shop where we wanted, eat where we wanted, work where we wanted, right? But there's something that people call the 7% line. I forgot what they call it. It's a 7% something, and the 7% number is important because there are theories that say that once an institution or neighborhood hits 7% black, you start to see white flight. The perception of the institution starts to change. It becomes lower, so therefore the institution loses some sort of social value. Well, So what happens is with integration is that you have a small percentage of black people, less than 7%, let's say, that get opportunities to, as you mentioned, become the mayor, the chief of police, the corporate manager, stuff like that. The other not, but yet, so the thing is that that little 7% or less can't hold the entire black community. So integration, what it does is it integrates members of the black elite, meaning middle class and up, who end up doing pretty well, like the Obama types. But you got the masses that are kind of left behind, that sort of live in these impoverished conditions. So what you're seeing, I think Baltimore is a great city to see this because, as you mentioned, there is a lot of you see some black power, you see black faces in powerful places, but you do have this massive underclass that feels that they don't have a voice. They feel that they've been left behind. Prosperity didn't hit those communities, and it wasn't always a matter of them choosing not to be prosperous. The schools are very, very low quality. There are no jobs. The war on drugs just obliterated those communities because the war on drugs was a complete farce. A lot of people don't know that, but the war on drugs basically, in that scenario, I don't know if everyone in the government knew this, but they were letting the drugs into black communities directly and not punishing the kingpins who were bringing billions into the country. What they were doing was pretending to fight the war on drugs by arresting black men. They would wait till the drugs got on the corner. A cop explained this. He said, "We know where the drugs come in. We know where the big shipments come in, but we would go and we'd arrest. We were told that we couldn't arrest anybody until the drugs got on the street, and on the street means in the black neighborhood. So you had lots and lots of young black men going to prison over drugs.
Why? Why? Explain that to me.
Well,
Why?
a lot of it was due to at the time in the '80s, the Iran Contra affair. Basically, the CIA wanted to fight an illegal war in Nicaragua, where they wanted to support a rebel group, the Contras, and Congress wouldn't give them the money to do it. So what they did was they made deals with drug dealers in Central America and said, "We will let you sell drugs and bring weapons into the U.S. to sell, so you can raise money as long as you use some of that money to fund our illegal war." So basically, what happened was that's how the crack epidemic occurred. That's how crack just seemed to hit the scene out of nowhere, was because there was a huge supply. You should watch two films. One's called Kill the Messenger, and the other one's called Freeway Crack in the System. If you really want to understand the absolute decimation of many urban communities, that will help you understand a lot of what was happening. That's why a lot of the community was outraged. Even one of the DEA head at the LAPD, when the FBI or CIA director came to South Central Los Angeles to try to explain it all away and say, "Oh, these are rumors and myths," the head of the Los Angeles Police Department's Drug Enforcement Agency stood up and said, "I know for a fact that the CIA has been bringing drugs into black communities for years." And so this is the kind of thing they don't want people to know, because people are wondering what happened. Why is there so much violence? Where did that come from? Well, we don't make drugs in black communities. We don't make guns in black communities. Where do they come from? Somebody brings them in. You see, so what this does is, over time, this has created so many social complexities that I can't even go into all of them. But a lot of this fatherlessness that you see, that didn't start until the war on drugs, because so many black men were being incarcerated. There was a New York Times article this week that said 1.5 million black men are missing from their communities because they're in the criminal justice system, and the numbers of black men that have been arrested in the U.S. or put in prison in the U.S. exceeds the number of black men that were put in prison in South Africa during the height of apartheid. So,
But that's not the story that most people hear about why the black family has deteriorated. The
right,
story that most people hear, that I've always heard, is it has to do with welfare. Once we established the welfare state, it made it profitable for families to just keep having babies, even though there were no fathers to assist in the raising of the families. We've never heard that it was the drug war. We never heard that. We heard
well,
that it was the welfare state.
Well,
That
remember, the idea of government assistance was around long before black people were ever allowed to take part in this, right? You had things like the Homestead Act, where hundreds of thousands of acres were just given away to people. We didn't get any of that land, right? You had the New Deal, and what FDR kind of did, which some people love, some people don't, but it helped people when they needed help. What whites went through in the Great Depression, the horror they felt in the Great Depression, we've lived in the Great Depression since slavery. The Great Depression never left the black community. My grandmother joked. She said, "I didn't know that there was a depression because we were always poor." And so my point here is not necessarily to lay out excuses for every single thing that every black person in America does. It's to say that black people are just as human as whites, and but our conditions, the things that we have to react to, are very different from, say, middle class whites. So when you've got these young kids, a lot of the people who let's if you talk about, say, the looters who are destroying things, people will say, well, why are you destroying things in your own community? Well, when that kid burns down the CVS pharmacy that got burned down, that's not his community to him. He doesn't own that pharmacy. He doesn't own anything in the community. Most black people live in communities they do not own. It's owned by someone else. There's a slumlord. There's a corner store run by Asians or Indians or whites or something. And and the other thing too is, and again, it doesn't in any way condone
Right.
what their reaction. But it's interesting too that when you talk about the media images that people are seeing, that's a very select segment of the protesters. I mean, that's a niche. That's not even the majority of the people that are protesting what's happening. Most people in Baltimore that are protesting are not burning things down and throwing rocks at the police. But here's one truism, though. Most people I know who would never burn anything down, never throw a rock at a police officer, they see this happening and they say, you know what? I understand. I understand. And these are law abiding, hardworking people, some with college degrees, other professors that I've talked to, because even though they may never go to prison, they will never get shot by a cop, go through what Freddie Gray went through. They have relatives who've gone through this. They can say, well, like me, I can say, well, you know what? My father, my older brother, and several of my relatives have gone to prison, and that's not normal. And the thing is, these were not necessarily horrible, unredeemable people. These were people who maybe did things, made mistakes or whatever. But sometimes the sentences are just so harsh, and people don't understand how that undermines the structure of the family. So suddenly you've got 16-year-olds out looting and rioting because there's no parent at home, because their parents have been just crushed by the system. Their families have been destroyed. So, people don't have to hear it if they don't want to. They probably
Well,
don't
I
want
have
to hear it. They
to
may not even get it. But that's what's
stop.
really
stop.
happening here.
I have to stop you. And you and I have had this conversation many times. I understand that the penalties, I understand you've told me many times the penalties are much harsher for black people. And I can't argue with that. I honestly don't know. And I believe you wouldn't say that unless it was the truth. But at the core, people are not going to jail for nothing. They did something that was against the law. I don't believe that out of whole cloth, black men are being sent to jail for nothing. I understand your point is that, well, if a white man did the same thing, he either wouldn't go to jail at all or he wouldn't have such a harsh sentence. And my answer is always, don't step out of line. I would say that to any white person or to any black person. I would say that to anybody. You do not act outside the law. And especially if you're a black person and you know that that's going to come down, that boot is going to come down harder on your neck than somebody else's, all the more reason you really, really have got to not step out of line. So
Well,
don't
well,
make it sound like these people are thrown in jail for nothing. They're in jail because they committed some crime. I believe that. Do you doubt that?
no, I don't doubt it. What I will say is that what you're saying is certainly true. In that, if you don't ever break the law, you'll never go to jail. That's what I do. I mean, I don't break the law. I didn't go to jail.
That's
Okay.
right. Exactly.
However, a couple of dynamics that occur are, number one, you can say that to a certain percentage of all people, and they're going to be able to do that, toe that line, never make a mistake. But if you're talking to 40 million people, you're going to have a bell curve. You're going to have some people that always do the right thing, and some people that don't, that make mistakes. They might jaywalk, they might speed, they might tell a lie, they might evade taxes or cheat on, write something off on their taxes they shouldn't have written off, whatever. The question at that point is not whether or not breaking the line is just sort of an on-off switch. Either you're a criminal or you're not. The question is, does the punishment fit the crime, and why is the penalty so much more severe for some people
No,
than it
no,
is for
no,
others? No, that's absolutely important. I mean, that's really true.
no. But that's. I am saying there is a black and white line. No pun intended. No, meaning nothing other than there's a clear line of demarcation. Do not break the law. Simply do not break the law, not even a little. I'm
Well,
saying that to
but
everybody.
but but
Do
that
not
but that's the
break
thing. I mean, first of all, everybody breaks some law at some point in their lives. I don't care who
the
you
law.
are. It
No.
really everybody. Maybe you've jaywalked. Maybe you drove 67 in a 65. Maybe you wrote something off on your taxes and couldn't quite defend yourself in court. I mean, everybody at some point. I mean, we have so many laws that are out there. I think everybody at some point makes a mistake. College kids on college campuses, they drink underage. Some of them may try a drug. Again, I don't use drugs, never have. But my issue here is, when people make the mistake, why is the penalty for that mistake so much greater for some people than others? There are guys in prison right now who were arrested over a small bag of marijuana. Now there are white guys out in Colorado becoming millionaires by selling marijuana legally now. There are white kids on college campuses that smoke marijuana every weekend, but you'll never see a white college kid go to prison for possession of a small amount of marijuana. But there are a lot of black men who've gone through that. And then here's the other thing. Here's the other kicker. That's true, proven to be true. There are a lot of black men in prison who didn't do anything, and I'm not making that up. Just this week, there was a case that was revealed in the media about a man who went to prison for 20 years because when the FBI did his hair analysis, they mistook his hair for the hair of a
There.
dog. For the hair of a dog.
Disgust.
They didn't even take the time to look at the difference between a human hair and a dog hair and send him to prison for 20 years. Then, when they went deeper into the analysis of this particular crime lab that did all the hair analyses and all that, they said, why is it that 95% of the time, almost all the time, when you analyze something, you end up ruling in favor of the prosecutor? You're biased, you're corrupt, you're crooked, you're making mistakes, and you're cheating, you're lying, you're sending innocent people to prison. So what happens is when you get into that situation, and let's say you didn't commit a crime, and you get arrested anyway. And remember, being black means in a black neighborhood, you're more likely to be arrested or to interact with the police because the police are there a lot more than they are in the lily white neighborhoods. Okay, so the police are there. Let's say you get arrested because you look like somebody who committed a crime, but you didn't do it. So you get in there. First thing they're going to say to you a lot of times is, "We want you to take a plea. You sign here, say you did it, and we'll give you, probation, but you'll have a criminal record, which means you can't get it, certain jobs for the rest of your life. You're marked for life at that point. The scarlet letter. So, but you'll get probation, and it'll be over. You can go home." Or, and let's say you come back and you say, "No, I didn't do it. I didn't commit this crime." So they say, "Okay, well, if you want to push this to a trial, that's fine, but you'll be facing 15 years to life." Right? And you're going to go in front of an all-white jury, which is very likely going to convict you, because
All right, wait a minute, wait a minute. All right, too many things you're assuming. First of all, who says it's going to be an all-white jury? I don't say it's going to
in
be an
many
all.
cases, a lot of juries are all white or almost entirely white. They don't put black people in juries that often because they know that black people understand injustice more than whites who never have to deal with corrupt cops. They, they
Well,
don't
but
they don't know what it's like to have a relative who was almost killed by a police officer even when they didn't
right,
do anything.
but there are
Most whites don't know that.
whoever is the defense lawyer is conducting voir dire of the jury, and it's unlikely that it will always be. Don't say it'll always be an all-white jury because it probably won't be an all-white jury. Number one. Number two, to say that there are black men in jail for having committed no crimes whatsoever, I'm sure there are white men also in jail for having committed no crimes whatsoever.
Not as many black men. I'm telling you, you got to go look at those studies. I'm telling you.
You're probably right, but if you're going to talk in absolutes, then I have to correct you because it's not just black men. Yes, I think that every now and again the justice system fails and people are incarcerated, men, women, black, white, for absolutely no reason whatsoever. But I think most of the time you're in jail because you did something outside of the law. And I understand your point is that black people are treated much more severely for having stepped outside the line like that. I'm telling you, as I've said before, all the more reason, do not step outside the law. If you know that the game is rigged against you, come on. Until you change the rules such that it's fairer, you have got to play the game to win. And
So
the way you play the game to win is you do not step outside the law.
and I'm gonna tell you what a lot of black parents tell their kids. They say the system's rigged against you. Don't break the law. But then there are people who say we need to change the game because it's not right that we have to be
Change
forced to
again.
live under these unfair conditions. And if that means that okay, we're going to try to vote certain people in office, that doesn't work. We're going to try to do marches and silent protests and peaceful protests and hold hands and sing "We Shall Overcome." That doesn't work. We're going to write our congressman. That doesn't work. So you know what? If all that doesn't work, we're going to throw a brick through the window of the local CVS and burn that sucker down, and that'll get your attention. And I'm
But
not saying that that's the
that'll
right way
work.
to approach things,
But
but
that'll
when
no.
nothing else has worked, and then you've consistently been victimized by all kinds of violence. I know innocent people who are afraid of the police, and they have good reason to be afraid because I'm telling you, my dad was a cop. There's nothing scarier than a dirty cop. And there are a lot of dirty cops who prey on poor communities because they know they can get away with it. They know that look, if this kid shows up at the police station with a black eye and I gave it to him, I can say any lie that give any lie I want, and I'm going to get away with it. I'm not even
Right.
going to get indicted if I kill him. And so you have cops that have been hitmen for drug dealers. You have cops that have robbed drug dealers who've planted weapons and drugs on people. The war on drugs has created all these ugly scenarios that have mainly affected urban communities, and it's a mess. It's a mess that the state does not want to acknowledge and want to deal with, and that's what you're seeing in Baltimore. These people are not over. They're not reacting over nothing. They're not just remember. Also, and I'm gonna tell you the truth. Another secret about black people: black people are very conservative as a collective. Conservative, very passive. Like we're gonna get together and pray that things get better, and we're not near. If we were half as crazy as white people have been when they got mad, that whole city would be burned down. I mean, people that really want to understand rioting and looting and how that built the foundation of this country, they need to go back to prohibition when there were women that wanted alcohol banned so badly they would go into bars and saloons and hack the
Yep.
tables and the bars and the windows. They'd have to go back to bloody Kansas when people fought over slavery. Now, these are white people. Black people were, we were still slaves, where they were murdering each other over slavery. If you were for slavery, I'm going to kill you. If you're against slavery, I'm going to kill you. Right? So it's not as if we just learned this violence yesterday. I mean, think about this. What's more violent? Somebody who burned down a CVS or people who will bring their kids to a lynching as if it's a family picnic? I mean, that's
All right.
crazy. That's crazy, right? Am I right or am I right?
Stop you again. People who would do that are beyond despicable. This is disgusting. We're not talking about a baseball stadium filled with people. We're talking about a couple disgusting, hateful, racist morons. They are not representative of anything or anybody other than their own stupid selves.
But
That's
remember,
it.
but what I encourage you to go take a look at is look at some of those pictures of the lynchings and how there would be lots, not just a couple people. I'm talking about hundreds of people, a lot. Because remember, the Klan they were in the police department and politics, all that. I'm talking about hundreds of people smiling, taking a picture, and there's a black man hanging from a tree in the background. And I don't, and I still don't understand that. I'm like, what kind of mental illness? Do you have to think that that's normal? Now, mind you, of course,
I,
we know that doesn't happen today, but that's the foundation on which this country was created, and so this violence, I
but,
think, was
but
learned as a way
how
to get things done sometimes.
No. I can't believe that you would say that the violence that we've witnessed this week in Baltimore will have the effect of getting anything positive done. I think it's just the opposite. I think most people have been watching this on their TV screens all week thinking, those crazy black people, look at what they're doing. Those crazy black people, again, they're at it again. They're doing it again. Look at these crazy, violent, unreasonable black people. You're
Well,
going to tell me that what went on this week was helpful to the black community?
you
I
know
don't.
what? I'm not going to say whether it's helpful or not, but what I will say is this: it's not inconceivable. First of all, it got people talking in a way that they probably wouldn't have been talking if people had yet one of the 1,000th peaceful quiet march. This is a watershed moment in history in that people are making their voices heard by any means necessary. With that being said, I think there is in politics there is a little bit of good cop, bad cop. I believe that the looters or the people that might actually engage in violence to defend their communities or to retaliate against violent police, those individuals give power to the peaceful marchers and the politicians who are trying to get things done. Because if I'm a politician, what I'm going to say is, look, this violence, I know this is scaring the people in the city. This is tearing your city down. It's costing you money. you guys really need to give us what we want so we can go talk to those people and talk them down and help them out, because if you don't, then it's going to keep happening and it's going to spill over and it's never going to stop because
Nope, 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 no. There's no possibility that any sane person is going to say, wow, we better give these looters and rioters what they want, otherwise they're going to keep doing this.
no, no.
No.
I mean, you had the Boston Tea Party. They were looters and rioters, and they were throwing the tea off the boat and destroying property in order to make a point. No taxation without representation. That's what the people in Baltimore feel. They feel, look, we're paying taxes. We're American citizens too, but we don't get access to justice. Our schools suck. We don't have any jobs. And then the other thing too is that you have to be very careful about is you don't want to have a society where you create an underclass where you got a bunch of people who have nothing to live for. Who have nothing to look forward to. It's people who have something to lose. They won't burn down a CVS. They won't throw a brick through a window. But if I already feel that my society's killed me and I'm borderline suicidal anyway, and I'm worried about the cops coming through the neighborhood not to serve and to protect, but to hunt me down and kill me, then I might do whatever I've got to do to make my point. I don't know.
I said this to you at the beginning of our conversation. I said it's an awful thing that these people are obviously so desperate. They obviously feel like they have nothing to lose. But sadly, I don't believe that they will gain anything by this display of abusive, unlawful behavior, because you don't give in to this. You don't indulge these kind of tantrums, these unlawful tantrums. You don't indulge them because that only encourages more rioting. Because if the answer is, well, this is how we'll get what we want, by rioting, because they'll be afraid we'll riot again. No, I think the next time there'll be more police, more National Guard troops on site sooner. I think, the mayor of Baltimore, look, I'm sure she's got a hard job, but I don't think that she handled this very well. Do you? Do you think
Um,
that
y-
her
you know,
answer, let them loose?
Stephanie Rawlings Blake, I think is her name. I don't know her. I don't know her politics well enough to comment just yet. But I am going to Baltimore in about a month, so well, I was scheduled to, so I have to figure out more about the dynamics there. But I just think it's interesting. I'll say this, Susan. I think it's interesting that there are people that will talk more about the looting and the violence and the looting that occurred afterward, and then they spend talking about the police killing this kid. I don't care how valuable your store was; it's not more valuable than a human life. And the fact that I can't imagine a case where I could go down the street and murder somebody, and then if their family retaliated by kicking in my front door and destroying my living room furniture, I can't imagine me being able to say, look at what these hoodlums did to my furniture. This is horrible, and to have you actually spend more time thinking about my furniture than you spend thinking about the fact that I killed someone in their family.
All right.
Remember, that
You also have to stop. We don't exactly know what happened to Freddie Gray. What I heard today on the news is that he had some kind of surgery, or some kind of back surgery or neck surgery. There was some medical condition. He was told to maintain a very sedentary lifestyle for a couple of weeks until he was, all healed or something like that. It could very well be, and I'm sure that there'll be full investigations here. It could very well be that his death was not caused by the police. And you have to wonder, the police certainly have got to know that with tensions running so high across the nation because of so many of these sort of incidents in the last several months, certainly they would be super sensitive to not doing anything that would have contributed even further to this very, very horrible dialogue. So I think we have yet to, you're saying that he was murdered. I'm saying we don't know that yet.
Well,
Let's not.
it's not. Well, here's the thing. The Freddie Gray situation is far bigger than Freddie Gray. Most of the people that are really angry about Freddie Gray's situation are not angry just because of what happened to him. They're angry about their own experiences. You see,
Right.
the police sometimes, when they are abusive, they are their own worst PR. They have hurt so many people. The police state that we live in since the war on drugs has hurt so many people, affected so many people's lives, that when someone says, "Yeah, I'm gonna go and march against the cops, or I'm gonna go and loot or riot or what or participate in this thing against the cops," other people say, "Yeah, I understand because this happened to my uncle, or I saw my mother get body slammed by the police." There's a great video on Facebook. I wish you could see it, where a kid is basically saying, "Yeah, I'm out here because these cops ran my mother over in 2004 and she's been paralyzed and she can't work. How's my mother going to eat?" And they didn't pay her anything and she didn't even break the law. See, that's the problem with these military tactics. Is it's a lot like when we go into Iraq and we're looking for the insurgents and we murder little children and kill innocent people because we don't care who we kill on our way to try to get the insurgents. It's the same way. A lot of innocent black people who are law abiding, didn't do anything wrong to anybody, are getting shot up by police who are coming in there, with guns out, ready for war. Ramarley Graham is another kid like this. He was the sweetest kid. His mother said he didn't even play violent sports, and the police shot him. Police murdered him. Now they had to pay a settlement, but it still just goes deeper in the sense that we're all terrorized by this because for so many police, not all, we know there are a lot of good cops. For so many police, being a man with a black face makes you a potential enemy, and they're going to deal with you in such an abrasive and aggressive way that if you say one word back, if you move, if you flinch, if you reach in your pocket to grab your wallet, you
As
might die that day. And that's what black men are afraid of. That's what I'm afraid of.
I understand perfectly. You start just now. You started by saying that the police are often their own worst PR. I'm telling you that the black community in Baltimore today was the worst PR that the black community could possibly have had. It reinforced every negative notion that many white people have of a lawless black community that doesn't care about anything or anybody. They'll break any law, they'll break any window, they'll destroy property, they'll destroy their own. It was the worst PR for black community. I think
But remember, we'll never have a day where every single black person in America is behaving the way we want them to behave. And
or
if the media, if Fox News decides who they're going to point the camera at, remember, 99.9% of all black people could be doing one thing, but they'll find the one black person who's doing something different and put him on national TV. Like Jesse Lee Peterson, one of the
that's not
dumb.
fair.
Well,
It's not
Jesse Lee
fair.
Peterson is one of the dumbest, most ignorant, most backward Negroes to ever walk the face of the earth. What does he do? Sean Hannity makes him into a star, has him on TV every week, and most black people look at Jesse Lee Peterson and say, "What planet did this dumb, retarded fool come from?" Not the retarded. I should retarded is politically incorrect, but our show is called politically incorrect, so it's okay. But in all seriousness though, I think that people are getting away from believing in what I call the good Negro behavior protocol, which is that if we get 40 million black people to all act the same way and to all be reserved and calm and kind and peaceful as they're coming in and murdering our kids, that somehow whites will eventually have enough empathy to help us out. It doesn't work. I'll tell you this, and then I'll let you get the last word. In the 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma race riots, where we had what they called Black Wall Street, a very prosperous black community, when a lot of white men came in and murdered 300 black people and took all their property because they were wealthier than the whites. They were really doing well. When that happened, the media did the very same thing that I see some of our media doing. The way they were writing this report up as all these black people were being slaughtered. I mean, because the whites have been deputized. Because remember, the Klan was in the police department, so a lot of these guys were made into deputies, so they were able to kill with impunity. Not a single white person was ever prosecuted, even though 300 black people were murdered. When this was going on, the media reported it as they didn't report it as innocent black people being killed by a band of angry whites. They reported it as, look at these outrageous black people. They're looting and they're rioting in their own neighborhood. For decades, they called it the Tulsa Race Riots, which gave a totally different impression. And what we did was we flipped the language and said, no, this was not a riot. This was a massacre. A riot says everybody was fighting, everything was going crazy, and one side won, one side lost. No, the black people did not attack the white community. They sent the white men into the community to kill black people. It was a massacre. So the media did the same thing in 1921 that it does today. It takes the victims and turns them into the victimizers. The victims are the people that are being brutalized by police that come in there and think that they can do whatever they want, hurt whoever they want with impunity because the law will always exonerate them like it has done for the last 400 years. That's what I'm seeing in Baltimore. I'll let you get the last word because I love you.
I love you back. You're so totally wrong here, though. You are completely wrong here. There's no possibility that the black community helped themselves by their display of unlawful behavior in Baltimore this week. Simply didn't happen. More important, what is the path towards healing? What is the path to better relations between the black community and the police, black community and the white community? What is it? And I'm telling you, there's no possibility that any people in power are going to say, "Yeah, let's give those, those angry black people who've been looting and destroying things what they want." That's never going to happen. You have to know that's never going to happen. But what is necessary? What is going to take the place of the anger and the frustration and the hopelessness? How are we as a nation, as how is Baltimore as a city going to get past this? What is going to help all sides rise above the discord to find a peaceful and productive and loving path towards harmony within our communities? I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but I'm quite certain it's not looting and it's not destruction. What do you think it is?
Stop ignoring them. That's it. We have a black president, and a lot of people are happy about a black president. But guess what? Black unemployment has been incredibly high the entire presidency. It would have been. I don't care if Mitt Romney had been elected; it would have still been high. And our politicians don't pay attention to that type of stuff. Rebuild some of these communities that have been destroyed by the war on drugs. You know, you don't have to pay reparations by sending everybody a check, but maybe some urban, serious, significant urban reinvestment could be beneficial. Make their schools better. Create a jobs program, a new deal for urban communities, just like you had a new deal for all of America under FDR. We spend enough money on weapons and wars, then why can't we spend some money declaring a war on poverty in our own country? Nobody cares enough to do it, so people eventually are going to revolt. That's what happens when you don't control your capitalism. You know, controlling your capitalism is like being able to control your liquor, or like some people drink to the point where they're about to die from alcohol poisoning, and that's what our country has done. I'm a fan of free enterprise and a fan of capitalism to a point, as long as it's properly regulated. But in our country, we do it all wrong, and so as a result, we have this massive underclass of people that are forgotten by our society. And believe me, they're not going to be silent forever.
Sounds a little threatening, Boyce. That sounds a little bit of a threat.
It is a threat. It's not. I'm not gonna do it.
Yep.
Nature will take its course. I don't have to make it happen. I'm just observing and talking about what I see. And it would be unfortunate for us to have to do in our own country what we already have to do around the world. You see, the United States, because we've declared so many unnecessary wars on so many innocent or sovereign nations, we have billions, not billions, but millions of people around the world who hate our country because they've come through with a drone and blew up a daycare center, or they've come in and invaded their country because they thought they had weapons that they didn't have, or because they
Nope,
were
nope,
sticking their
nope,
nose in.
nope.
No, really, our foreign policy.
You're saying this as if we have arbitrarily and with no reason and with no logic decided to just go bomb everybody. And no, no,
No, no,
no.
we don't. No, no, we don't bomb everybody for any reason. You have to have oil. You have to have something we want. If you have something we want, the United States is the international bully. They will come to a country, they will beat you up, and they will take your lunch money. That's what our country does all
I,
around the world.
I say that. I can't allow you to say that about our country.
It's not everyone doesn't do it. I mean, you don't do it, but
Look here.
that's what those billionaires that run our government do. Because
I,
war is incredibly profitable. War makes money. We had no business in Vietnam. We had no business in Iraq. I mean, a lot of these wars get declared because they build up some boogeyman to the American people to make them think that somehow we're defending our freedom by going to a
you
country
honestly
we've never heard of.
you didn't think that communism was potentially a threat? There were
No, I
those.
don't. I don't think it was enough of a threat for us to let thousands of people die to go fight against it. No. Now, if the communists come to our border and they come and try to take over Washington or New York, Okay, yes, then we're fighting to defend our freedom.
No,
That's when
then
you
it's
pull out
too
the gun.
late. Then
I would
it's
line up too.
no, then it's already too late. If they're already on our shores, then we've missed the boat. We have missed the
I don't
opportunity
think those wars were about
to
these
and control.
ideological ideas like communism. I think the Vietnam War, a lot of that was about rubber. If I'm not mistaken, they had some resources that we wanted. And remember, if you occupy a nation with your military, you then can make favorable business deals that allow your corporations to come in and extract the resources. That's why the British wanted to colonize different parts of Africa to get the vast resources that are there. You
I
know,
believe that. I believe that, but I don't believe that we went to war in Vietnam for monetary purposes. I don't believe that. But I was a little girl at the time. It's hard for me to know why we were there. But no, I don't believe that. I don't believe it was financially motivated. I think that we believed that a threat existed in the world that we needed to stem before it got out of control.
I
And you know,
believe that those are the stories that are told to us to get us to sign off on it. If you can't get the American people to believe in what you're doing, then the guy from Nebraska is not going to send his farm boy son to go fight in your war or whatever. Urban communities, I think a lot of black people fought in these wars because, to be honest, I think there was a lot of economic hardship. And I know my father went to Vietnam because he didn't have a job, and they promised that there would be jobs and opportunities, which there weren't. They put him into infantry, and I think that that's what we're told. But there's always a deeper narrative. A lot of this stuff is driven by money. World War I and World War II, a lot of that's linked to money. There was money made. A lot of people became very wealthy by supplying weapons during World War II. That's how we were able to defeat the Germans, was because we made so many planes and bullets and all that. You
that
know,
people got wealthy and that businesses grew out of the economic necessities that are brought about by war is one thing. I don't believe that our country has ever gotten into a war specifically with economic benefit in mind. I don't think it's that. I think we get into wars for any number of other reasons. I'm not a politics major. I'm not a politician or a diplomat. Don't ask me why we get into wars, but I simply don't believe that any president or any administration would get us into a war for financial gain. I simply don't believe that. You're never going to convince me of that.
well, I say if you want to know why any politician does anything, just ask the business people who funded his or her campaign, and that will answer most of the questions that we might have about why they do what they do. I think politicians are puppets, and in order to understand the actions of the puppet, you must look at the puppet master. And politicians are not their own puppet masters; their donors are their puppet masters. So that's my theory. That's what I believe. But that's the finance guy in me. This was
That's
fun.
that's the story, and you're sticking to it, boys. I love that.
That's my
Love that.
story. I'm sticking to it. Oh, this is good. You know what? I thought that we couldn't talk about Baltimore without it getting overheated, but I'm glad we had the conversation. I'm glad people got a chance to hear your point of view because I think it's important to hear all perspectives. And I want to say thank you so much once again for joining
Always a
me in the
pleasure.
conversation. Yes.
Always
Oh,
a pleasure to talk with you. And I'm looking forward to very nice comments being written on posted on our. It's not going to happen.
ain't
I know.
happening. Ain't happening. They won't be nice, but it's okay. It's okay.
That's right. That's
We
right.
know people
A
love
few
us.
of them love me. A few of them love me. Malik loves me. Love you back, Malik. Love you back.
Well, remember, and I love you too. So that's not going to change, no matter what, no matter how
I,
many times you're wrong. All
I
right,
you are.
all right, everybody. This is Miss Susan Patton, aka the Princeton Mom. I hope you'll go check out her book. She wrote a great book called Mary Smart. And me, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. And just so you know, that Black Wall Street topic I brought up, we actually have a film out called Resurrecting Black Wall Street about the Black Wall Street atrocity that occurred in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1921, and also about how we can resurrect the ideas of cooperative economics that were used to build Black Wall Street in the first place. So I hope you will support the film. Please support, support, support. If you'd like to check out the trailer, you can watch the trailer and hopefully purchase the film at resurrectingblackwallstreet.com. That is resurrectingblackwallstreet.com. Until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.